Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lion Bytes, the podcast, where we bring voices from our Lion Bytes newsletter to life. I'm Danielle Biter, Public Relations Specialist for the Lockport City School District.
And I'm Bridget Licata, Communications Specialist at Lockport. We're thrilled to have you join us today as we talk about literacy and math programs in our district and give you some tips to support your kiddos at home.
And today we are joined by two fantastic guests, our instructional coaches, Lindsay Couturier and Kelly Brandel. Lindsay and Kelly, thank you so much for being here. And Lindsay, did I say your last name correctly?
You did. It's very tricky, but you got it right on the money. Good job.
I love that. Can you both tell us what grades you oversee and what subjects you oversee, please?
Go ahead. Z Couturier, and I am K through 4 literacy coach. So I help with all things literacy in K through 4.
Awesome.
I'm Kelly Brandel, and I'm grades 5 through 8 math instructional coach, and I'm mostly working and trying to make our new curriculum go as smoothly as possible.
I love that. So today we're going to be hearing a little bit about literacy in elementary and then a little bit about math in the middle school grades. So let's start with literacy first. Lindsay, can you tell us a little bit about Benchmark Advance? We're just starting year 2 now with the program officially. Can you walk us through what the program looks like real quick?
Sure. Benchmark Advance is a comprehensive program for all things literacy. So not just reading, but everything that would encompass literacy. So phonics, phonemic awareness, reading, vocabulary, speaking, writing, spelling, that's all embedded in this program. So
I
teachers,
love that you told us that. That is so
yeah,
good to know.
and it's really amazing for teachers because before this, our teachers were going to 3 or 4 different resources to fill their ELA time. Like they might have a reading curriculum here, a phonics program here, a writing program here, and they didn't all jive with each other. So the teacher's job was to make them work together, and it was really difficult at times to do that. This is done for them. Everything kind of is purposeful now and intentional and aligned with the topics that they are talking about at the time they're talking about them. So it does take that hunting and pecking that teachers have had to do in the past away, which is really great. Benchmark Advance is aligned with the science of reading, and all that means is that the creators of Benchmark Advance paid attention to the research that was done on how the brain best learns to read and write. So it does follow the time-tested, true best strategies for literacy instruction.
I love that. And I love that we have brought that to Lockport for our students. That's amazing.
One of the biggest differences that I would say between this program and others of the past is that it's designed to build knowledge. We found that in second grade and up, when kids learned to read and learned to decode, they still were struggling with ELA in terms of understanding the content and the vocabulary and the depth of different topics. Like they just didn't have the background knowledge and the vocabulary about things like government, science, and that we really need them to know so that by the time they get to middle school at Kelly's level and they're teaching content areas, the kids have some sort of background knowledge about the topic. So this program integrates science, social studies, and the arts into what the kids are learning about. So they're learning how to read at the same time as they're learning all this content stuff. Even in kindergarten, they're learning about government in terms of like what is a rule and why do we have them. So it's really basic at that level, but it builds upon itself. So that's another real difference. So not only are kids at the youngest level, K1, 2 used to just be learning to read. There wasn't a lot of content involved in terms of topics and vocabulary, but now that is all involved while they're learning to read to really build that knowledge. But they also, Benchmark Advance K has unit topics that are all the same. So everybody K through 6 in unit 1 is learning about plants and animals. So each unit lasts about 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. So for the first 3 to 4 weeks, every kid in Lockport is learning about plants and animals. Once they all get to unit 2, they're learning about characterization. Once they get to unit 3, they're all learning about government. So what that looks like in kindergarten is very different than what it looks like in 6th grade, but it's the same topic generally. And the essential
Sure.
questions that they talk about and how deep they get into that topic kind of is a stepping stone as you get through the grades. So I have an
So,
example.
Lindsay, sorry, I was just going to ask for an
Yeah.
example, but I was also going to say, so you mean when I sit down at the dinner table and I have my kindergartner and my third grader, I can talk about plants and they're both learning about them?
Yes. That
That's
is
cool.
what is so amazing about this from a parent perspective and even from a teacher perspective, because Our special area teachers, art, music, phys ed, they are all trying to get involved with benchmark advanced topics. And if they can bring something in that goes along with that topic when the kids are learning about it, all the better. Or field trips or special guest speakers, principals and staff know when certain topics are going to be discussed so they can see when that would best fit in, which is really cool. It's kind of a part of it that we didn't even think about. That's a plus. But yeah, I have an example from the first unit from September. So kindergartners, they learned about why do living things have needs. So that was very basic. But at that same time, in second grade, for example, they were learning about how do living things get what they need to survive. So they learned about like camouflage and adaptations. And then in sixth grade, they were learning about what roles can we play in the balance of nature. So it just takes that topic and builds upon it so that they can get deeper into that topic, which is really cool. So by the
Very
time
cool.
they get to middle school, they have all this background and content area filing cabinet knowledge that when they're learning at that level, they can attach to things that they know. So once they learn to read, they have the background knowledge, they have the vocabulary. It's just, um, you know, connecting it to the new stuff that they're learning.
That's really, really cool and helpful. Like you
Yes.
said, for so many people, not just parents, but the teachers and the different buildings and everything. It really
Mhm.
pushes that we are one message that we're pushing this year. And I know our community is always curious about results. Lindsay, can you tell us about some of the testing scores and any data, even though we've only been in it for a year, that the district's found?
Yes. One thing about that first question, though, that I forgot to say that I really wanted to mention, we are really excited to see our kindergartners move through Benchmark Advance because they will have all that background knowledge and vocabulary by the time
That's
they get.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, we might have fourth graders starting in the program, and they don't necessarily know all that K1, 2, 3. Starting with the now first graders really have had the
Mhm.
program since they've been in Lockport. So it'll be really exciting to follow that cohort and see what happens because they
Yeah,
will have
they're
it how it's meant to be from kindergarten up.
they're really building that knowledge. That's
Yeah.
very exciting.
Exactly. So now on to results. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure I said
No,
that.
it's fine.
The very first thing we saw, even with the pilot teachers, so 2 years ago, we had about 30 ish people in the district piloting Benchmark Advance, and it was very different people that were piloting. We had a lot of special education teachers that were piloting, classroom teachers that had special education students in their room, English second language students in their room, self contained classrooms, because we wanted to see how it would work with every different type of population we had happening in Lockport. So there was a very wide range of people getting the pilot. However, one thing we noticed right from the start in all of these classrooms was the increase in oral vocabulary. So these kids were introduced to all these words. Like in kindergarten, they're learning the word perspective right now as we speak, and they're learning how to use that word correctly. And when you go into classrooms, you're going to be shocked to see that kids are using these terms correctly. And you think then they're not going to be able to do it because the words are lofty. But then when you see them talking about those words and writing about those words and connecting those words to other things in their lives, it's pretty amazing. So that was one of the first things that we saw. Now that we're a year or two in, we're seeing the amount of writing that kids are doing is increased. The quality is not amazing yet.
It's
Writing is the
okay.
writing is the last thing in literacy to really improve because it's like the complex combination of all
Okay.
these stuff, so it's
That
really
makes
hard to
sense.
write, but we are seeing that kids are writing more, which is pretty exciting. They have more to write about as part of it, like, they're learning all this stuff now, and they have
Sure.
stuff to write about because they're writing about what they're reading, and they're reading about all these topics we're talking about, so they have a lot to write about now, whereas in the past, they didn't have as much to write about. They weren't learning all this stuff, and, if they were just writing about their weekend every Monday, it's different than what we have done in the past. So those were two like very general things. When we look at actual data, I can tell you that the overall New York State EL assessment scores increased tremendously last year. Some grades up of 10 points proficiency um, compared to the year prior. So that was just in year one of implementation. So teachers are literally just learning how to use this program, right? Last year. And it's a lot. There's a lot to it. So teachers are doing best, but it is a lot and it's going to take a couple years to get really great at it. So even just in 1 year, we have had 10% increase. So I'm super excited
Incredible.
the teachers have had more experience with it and are every year teachers are going to get better and every year students are going to get better. and know more. So I'm really, really excited to see how things keep rolling in that direction. We give an interim assessment at the beginning of the school year in K through 6. And it's basically, here's the standards that we want the kids to know by the end of the year and how are they doing on them. We saw that interim this year that we gave in September was higher in every single grade than it was last year in September. So the kids
Cool.
came to the grades this year knowing more than they did last September. Even kindergartners, which we can't take credit for, but they did. They came in higher. And then interim 4 last year in June. So June of 2025, we had kindergartners 84% proficiency on that interim. First grade was 72%. Second grade was 66%. Third was 59. Fourth was 55. Fifth was 56%. And sixth was 55%, which is
That's
typical.
interesting. Okay.
As the grades go up, there's way more the kids need to know. And the gap is wider too. The older the kid gets, if they are struggling, that struggling gap gets bigger and bigger for those kids. So it's expected to see as the grade level goes up for that percent proficiency to be a little bit lower. But I thought those were really great numbers.
Yeah.
Those are amazing numbers. And also, the program helps identify where those gaps are, right? And it will help intervene with those kids.
Yes, that's one great thing about Benchmark. Everything, like we said, it's comprehensive. Teachers do not have to go anywhere else besides Benchmark to get materials that they need, including intervention and reteaching materials. It populates reports based on the assessments that the kids do, and it tells the teacher red flag areas that they need to work on in terms of New York State standards. And then it gives them, with a click of the button, reteaching lessons that target that standard. So
That's
teachers
great. So there's no second guessing. They know.
Exactly. And teachers don't have time to be, searching all over to analyze data, number one,
Mm-hmm.
all over to find materials, and then vet the resource and make sure it's something that's worthwhile. So it's really, really great. Teachers can do something about the data they're getting in a quicker manner and feel good about it.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
So, real quick, as we wrap up our chat about literacy, Lindsay, do you have any advice for parents and guardians who want to help at home? What are some things that they can do to support literacy with their kids?
All the content and vocabulary that we're teaching kids in these units is really important. And it's really important that the kids know stuff. But what's more important is that they can read, right? So they can know all the stuff in the world, but if they cannot read words, that poses a really big challenge for them academically. So I would say the biggest priority would be get kids reading words. And how we do that is in kindergarten or before kindergarten, teaching them letter name, teaching them the sounds the letters make. And then before they get into first grade, we are teaching kindergartners how to blend and read and spell words. So reading words and reading accuracy. What that could look like for parents is, let's say you have a really struggling child. You can read with them and you can read a book with them. Maybe it's something the teacher sent home that's at their level, or maybe it's a little above their level. But if you read with them and they try to keep up with you and read and you're tracking the print with them, that is one really great way for you to get through the content, but also for them to practice their reading accuracy. We did create kindergarten, first, and second grade newsletters this year that will be going home with like the most important priority things that parents could do at home. Like, for
That's
example,
great.
in Unit 1 kindergarten, all they're doing is learning the letter M and the letter A. So it simplifies it for parents. If you can do anything with your kid this month, get them to learn the letter M and the letter A and the sounds they make. And maybe if you could have them practice writing those letters, that would be great. So
Mhm.
it
Yep.
simplifies it because parents just don't want to read through 500 different literacy activities you're working on with them in a month and
Right.
then try to guess which one's most important, right? So we're trying to prioritize the ones that are most important, that if parents have the time to work on at home, it would be super helpful for us. So those newsletters would be the go-to. If you have a child that's in third or fourth or fifth or sixth grade and is struggling, maybe that second grade newsletter would be helpful for you. So I don't think it's a bad thing to try to do that either. Mastering the basics of reading and spelling and reading with them every night. Like, there's so much power to reading for 15 minutes a night. Not only do kids get to learn their reading accuracy and practice it, but like they're exposed to more knowledge and more vocabulary by doing that as well. So that's just, and also it creates that like love of literacy.
Mhm.
I don't know what the quote is. I can't remember. There's a quote about it. Like, readers are created on the lap of their parents or something,
Yep.
something like that.
I love that.
That emotional security they feel when you're reading to them, they tie
Mhm.
that you and that experience when they're younger, and that's what creates readers and people that love reading. So that too would be a really
Can
great idea.
I backtrack? You had said a little bit before that the best thing to do is read out loud and track. Can you explain what you mean by that just for some parents that might not know the lingo and what that means?
Yes, no problem. So if you're reading a picture book to your child or a passage or anything, you just point to the words as you say them and have the child try to read with you if you think they're capable. Even if they're not able to read with you, if they're tracking the print as you're reading it, that's helpful. Maybe they only read every third word because they can't keep up, but you're modeling what it sounds like to read fluently and they're trying and they're tracking the print. So they're paying attention to it. So that's real as well.
Very
Another
cool.
thing, one last thing that I think is really helpful is if you try to have them write for multiple purposes, just have them try to help with the grocery list, Christmas list.
Hmm,
It
that's
gets them
fun.
writing for different purposes, practicing sounding out words and writing them down. Maybe in a journal, like if they
Mhm.
write in a journal,
Mhm.
maybe write back to them every once in a while. Or if they could write a letter, like maybe they have an aunt that lives in a different state and they could sit down and write a letter. Something like that to get them practicing putting their ideas on paper is super helpful.
It's fun.
Yeah, definitely.
I
A
love that.
thank you letter to their teacher
Yeah,
Yeah,
or their instructional coach.
that would be great.
That's amazing.
awesome. Um,
Let's let's pivot to math right now.
yeah.
Since Kelly's so patiently waiting, can you tell us a little bit about iReady and what grades we're working with it in and the pilot program and all that good stuff?
Okay. iReady is a concept-based math program where we have adopted it in grades 5 through 8. iReady itself kind of starts with a like a big picture problem, and it's scaffolded on things they've learned in the past. And they it's called to try it. So they try this question individually, then they pair up, and then you discuss it, and you have like a class discussion. And then at that point, that's where you take kind of all the kids' ideas and meld them all together and kind of do that explicit instruction of how to best solve this problem systematically. Then it follows with some practice. So it's really discourse based, and it doesn't. I feel like when kids learn best by playing and by experiencing things and being interested and having ideas. But in math classrooms, so often we just say, we're going to add today, and this is how you do it. Line up your numbers, carry your one. And it
Sure.
just takes away the meaning. And then as they grow, they get further and further behind because they just get more and more steps with no meaning. So I think programs like iReady kind of try to curb that a little bit. So you end up with the algorithm instead of starting with the algorithm.
That's so interesting and so different than the way that most of us have learned
Right.
math,
And it's a
growing up.
struggle for a lot of the teachers in the district too, and parents at home.
Sure.
Because I know when parents try to help, they're like, why don't they just do it the way I did? This is how I did it. And I always say, it's okay. Do it the way you did
Guilty.
it. As long as it made right. As long as you can get an answer, that's fine. But our goal is to get kids to become thinkers. And I think in society in general right now, that's so important because they're just on their phones and you just hear all this information coming at you all the time. You have to be able to take information and think about it before you
Yeah,
process it.
especially with the introduction of AI becoming mainstream,
Mhm.
it's really important to squeeze in those math and literacy skills.
Yes. Yes. Let's
And
get some research
really,
going. Yeah.
yes, yes. So, what would you say are the main goals with the iReady curriculum for our students?
So I think just having a curriculum in general is like Lindsay was saying before, we used the modules when they first came out. And then if something seemed too hard or something didn't go right, teachers were pulling in their own things. So then you had like some classrooms who were doing the modules and really going deep, and you had other teachers doing worksheets they found on Teachers Pay Teachers, and there wasn't a lot of consistency. So number one, I think a new curriculum provides consistency. Number two, with iReady, I think developing that thought and the meaning behind what we do, not just doing random steps, would be also the main focus of the program.
I love that. Intentional.
Yeah, definitely. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we're still in the early stages that we don't really know results yet. But what type of
So
feedback are you hearing?
it's still a struggle for teachers, but I will say in the 7-8 buildings, so everyone in the Aaron Mossel, this is their second year. So
Okay.
if we also do kind of like the interim, our diagnostic 3 times a year, and at 7 and 8, our amount of green or proficient students at the beginning of the year were higher than they were last year by a fairly significant portion, which means to me that having gone through that program last year is really benefiting them. So we're not seeing it as much in 5-6 because they're not doing it K4 yet. So, but
Okay.
70 is really saying they can see the difference from the kids. And in sixth grade to some degree, they
Right.
can see it too.
Awesome. That's great and super exciting. For parents listening, I know for ELA, for reading, for literacy, it's very easy to say, read to your kids. There's so many opportunities to teach them on that side of things. For math, it might be a little bit more difficult. What ideas do you have that parents can use at home to support their kids?
Okay. First and foremost, I think knowing your basic facts and being fluent with them is super important because it just makes that upper level math so much easier when you don't have to think about how to get that number. And that's easy to do at home. You can use flashcards, there's computer apps. You could just get a whiteboard and write a problem and have your kids do that. But beyond that, kind of getting kids more comfortable with fractions and decimals. And the best way to do that is when you're going shopping and you're looking at prices, you're calculating discounts on when you're cooking and you want to double a recipe. Maybe you are going to paint a room and you need to figure out how much paint to get, how much that's going to cost, carpet, will this couch fit along this wall? Any of those things. I mean, you use math every day and you don't even really
Yep.
think about it. And being intentional about including your children in those conversations and decisions will help them kind of develop that relationship with math as well and how it works in the real world.
Love that.
Or
Who
when
doesn't?
eating a pizza.
Yeah.
Pizza night.
I was going to
If I
say, who
cut it
doesn't
in
love
4
baking?
pieces, look how big these pieces are. Let me cut
Yeah.
it into 8. This looks more reasonable,
Yes.
but look at there's 8 pieces.
Mom's going to
They're
eat
actually
one half
smaller.
of this pizza.
Yeah, right. So just, playing with that stuff in the real world.
Very cool.
That's
I love
awesome.
that.
Well, Lindsay and Kelly, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise in math and literacy. It's so valuable to hear directly from our instructional coaches about the programs we're using and how to get families more involved.
Absolutely. And thank you to all of our listeners at home for tuning in. Be sure to check out the Lion Bites newsletter and more updates and resources. You can stay connected with us here for future episodes.
Anything else you want to chime in before we end this, Kelly or Lindsay?
I was
Just
just
wanna
happy that
say-
you asked me to share about math for our parents at home and what we're doing in the district.
Yeah. And also, if you're a parent listening to this, that is one huge step in an amazing direction that you are listening to podcasts about what your kid's doing at school. And that is amazing, in my
That
opinion.
is-
So I just think, it takes a village, and we
Yeah.
appreciate that you're listening and trying to be there, and help us along the way.
Absolutely.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that is.
Awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Well, until next time, this is Lion Bites Podcast. So stay connected
Stay strong.
and stay lions.